Okay, so the truth is, we're still learning about, scientists still learning exactly what is the entire composition of the cells and like how, basically understanding how the human body, the biology actually even works. So, and this is pretty much like a gross simplification, a gross oversimplification of how the cells themselves are composed when it comes to body types. So like Vata is like, it's the same cell, but they are constructed and composed differently. And I would even gander that they are a different size, that their structures themselves are slightly bigger. Kapha is bigger. Vata is slimmer and more refined. It's more slimmed down. Basically, your metabolic constitution basically constitutes the rate at which your brain works, the rate at which it's your frequency, the frequency of your life. It doesn't really change. And the only way you can do that and achieve faster speed is by basically slimming down the cell, breaking it down to its constituent parts. It's basically, it's a very broad oversimplification. Basically due to the size of like the energy structures themselves within the cells, Vata stores less energy, Pitta stores more, Kapha stores the most. Same with water as well. Least amount of water, more water, most water. The fat ratio, the cell walls themselves are thicker on Kapha. That's why it slows things down. Slow things down, not in a bad way, just meaning a relative speed. It makes you calmer, more spatially aware, more energetically perceiving, more steady, more stable, more strong, hardy, constitutional, basically. It's your constitution. It's very easy to tire out this cell. It's less easy to tire out this cell. The cell has much deeper reserves. This cell has the deepest reserves. You can only have so much energy within the cell when you're depleting about like 10 or so percent before you start physically feeling the negative effects. Kapha can experience a deeper state of It's not true. But like the being depleted feels differently for each body type. It hurts. This guy experiences it the most often and feels the effects the worst. It hurts them the worst. They don't have as deep reserves to rely upon. So when it comes to time for like toxicity and things which basically cause, or long-term events, things which cause you to basically experience symptoms of attrition, long drawn out anythings like toxicity from pokeberries, I don't know, survival situations. Vata's not going to do very well. We literally have about 50% less than most other body types do of like simply just water, food storage. We constantly have to keep hydrated. We basically cannot exist without a portable fridge, without our lunchbox. You guys can. We really cannot. By the time you guys' lunch break has already occurred, our food cycle has almost already occurred twice. 1.5 times. In order for us to stay properly healthy and balanced, we need to be consuming food more frequently, water a lot more frequently, because our cells cannot store that much. The water storage system within our bodies is not really set up for that. There's not as many, the vessels themselves are not as large. The organs themselves are not as large. They're smaller. Your organs are smaller. Your lungs are, not your lungs. Epifamiliar to all those complicated words. Your cell walls themselves are thinner. They might be more dense, more compact, more closely packed in a tight space. There's more packed in a tight space. But there's just not as much dedicated to energy and storage. It has to be removed. In order to speed up the cell, things have to be taken out. In order to make something lighter, you have to strip out all the non-essentials. And there's a drawback to that, and that is basically you have to refuel. You have to refuel more constantly. You can't go for long lengths of periods of time. It's hard. It hurts. It sucks. Metabolic constitution is not something which is even taught in most schools or Ayurvedic systems. Hindu was supposed to be one that was the big promoter, big understander of this. For some reason, that awareness of that understanding has been dropped slightly, and it shouldn't be that way. It does not need to be. We need to keep that understanding, that information, that context always, because it heavily regulates our lives. Vata prefers fatty, oily, salty foods, strong flavors and spices. We love that. And high nutrition. The nutrition needs to be very high for Vata. And food needs to digest fast and very quickly, within about 30 minutes to an hour at most. It needs to have passed through our stomachs at that point. After about 30 minutes, you start hurting Vata. Vata digests very fast. Their stomach action, the amount of food that they take in, and the way this is enacted upon is very quick. It's very rapid. It's very Vata. Vata is like it's fast. And also another thing about the colloquialism between the names themselves is like Vata always needs water. Vata, water. Pitta always needs food. Always crying out for food. I'm always crying out for water. Always crying out for food. Always crying out for sleep and rest. That's what Kapha really prefers, really favors, really loves. Rest. But these guys can go for like 8 hours at a time of like just constant, just all night, just like there's like a big project or something. That Kapha is just still sitting up there, just cranking them out, moving things, getting things done, getting things moving around. 4 hours, this guy needs rest. 6 hours, this guy needs rest. Basically, 2 to 3, 4 hours. It's very short. We are all needed. We basically support the other body types. And so the food preference for them is like, it becomes like stronger, more compact, more densified to lesser and lesser. And like basically these guys can handle heavier, more proteins and like things like that, especially like all meat diets. These guys are the only ones that can take or sustain that. It's not really sustainable for these two. It's sort of sustainable for Pitta. Heavy Pitta is a little bit different than light Pitta, but Vata is completely separate. They need to have a balance. They need to be consuming almost nothing stronger than seeds and bread. Anything that's more like beef, pork, you start peanut butter, hurts. You'll basically give them diabetes if you overshoot that too soon. Also, for the same thing, the limit of how much they can take, their allowance of basically extremes is much smaller. They can't force themselves to eat a lot of food. It hurts. That will give you diabetes as well. It just overloads your systems too much. Your body can't process too much of it at once. Your cells, it needs to basically meet the cellular requirement and no more. And Vata meets that very quickly. Basically, these guys can store, it's a beautiful... That's the most amount of water I can ever drink at one time without it simply hurting. Your water allowance would look something like you would drink about 2 to 3 times less often, frequently, and probably even less, because your body stores and maintains water better because it has that fat. It doesn't evaporate as fast. When you talk, when you speak, it doesn't evaporate off your mouth as fast. You have more mucous membranes. One thing I wanted to actually say was about my pokeberry experience is what it basically eroded my cells, eroded my esophageal flap. Anything that it touched, it stripped very quickly. Pitta and Kapha has better constitution, better resilience to those things, to almost all type of chemistry, to almost all type of chemical attack, to almost all type of chemical situations that you encounter in life. Yours is going to be greater. Also, besides, it's a lot more efficient to sip water instead of to have your heart and your body to circulate up to your head. because your head's basically from your body. It's very closed off. It's a big. It's more comfortable to sip. Kapha can eat basically the lifestyle, the activity of your day. The activity of your lifestyle determines basically how many times you need to eat in a day. There's no real set time. I can eat up to like 8 times a day of actual full meals, like just bread, if I just hammer this through. If I'm just working constantly, I'll need to eat like 8 times a day, 6, 8 times a day. 5 if I'm more relaxed, 4 or 5 if I'm a lot more relaxed. If I'm super steady, if I'm not doing anything, it's basically 4 or 8 times a day, basically. It just really varies. It varies for all of them. 1 to 3 times a day, 2 to 4 times a day, 5 if you're really crazy. And basically that doesn't count for like the fruits, the snacks. Snacking, that's a mis. Fruit should not be eaten with your meals. It should be eaten afterwards or before. There are nutrients and compounds which need to. Basically, fruit exists mainly for the reason of restoring your acidic balance, your enzymes, terpenes, slight oils. It's basically designed to help you push food through, especially for Vata. Vata needs to have that almost every other meal or so, especially at nighttime. You can't be having heavy foods at night, especially when your metabolism slows down. That's why you have these in between meals. I've pretty much said most of the things I needed to say. Yeah, it affects your steadiness, your speed, your ability to perceive life. It comes at you at a faster or more steady rate. You're more energetically aware. You're either slower or more energetically aware. You're very focused. You're very tuned in. You're very concentrated point focus, and your memories, your thoughts are sort of like short term. For women, it's a little bit different. Your ratio is a little bit higher than this. Your ratios of water, of fat, of content, of energy is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit more towards the balance of different, even greater spectrum than men are. Men have a little bit more of that fire concentration ability, more air, more fire. Especially if you are Vata, you are the fastest literally on earth. Yeah, that does have some negative side effects, in a sense. And you need your other brothers to basically, you need the other family members to basically do what you cannot, to be steady, to be calm, to be long-lasting, to be constitutional, to be steady, to be more hardy. If you guys ever see me in real life, both my hands are basically shot. I'm missing chunks out of all my body, basically, and yeah, this is just for another video, but it's like, your metabolic constitution basically determines how many times you can go, how many times you can release, how much total reserves that you have of both nutrients and calories and everything else. And affects every quality of your life, yeah. So, yeah, pretty much what I need to, I guess. If I have anything else, I'll always write it down in the comments. If I ever think of anything more, if I ever really just need to remake this video just entirely, I will, because there's pertinent information which needs to be said, conveyed verbally, visually, which can't be done through just typing the words. It's more helpful to have both. Some people are both dual learners, both thirds verbal. It helps to have all that visualization, learning words, literature, demonstrations. Anyways, but I think anything more. Love you guys. Have a happy holidays.